Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Green Arrow FPL podcast and Fantasy Football Hub as we look ahead to double game week 25. My name is Fergie, and I am here with Rich Clarke. Rich, how are you? And what colour was your arrow in game week 24?
Hi Fergie, hi everyone. I got a green, nice green bounce back week for me. Re-enthused, re-engaged. So got most of the points I lost after the Foden debacle in the previous week. Didn't wildcard and brought in made three transfers actually. So I got Haaland in, which I was a bit late doing, but got him in for his haul. Got Darwin in, who got a return and a bonus point, so he's in place. And the less said about Alfie Doughty, the better, who returned a nice 0 pointer. But we didn't just bring him in for last week; we brought him in for the two doubles to come. So he's in place and a massive 86 points, Fergie.
Wow,
So
well played.
a good week and a nice green. So back inside the top half mil. Still not where I want to be, but these are the big weeks coming up now, aren't they? So these are the ones where you've got to be strong and got to make some ground. So yeah, on the whole, I'm pretty pleased though.
Well done, mate. Talking about strong, I've been feeling pretty weak after my wild card. As those who remember from last week, we kind of talked through my rationale of the wild card. I think the rationale was still okay, but there was definitely a couple of picks which didn't go my way, which was pretty annoying. I only scored 67 on the wild card, so I unlocked a very rare FPL achievement this week, Rich, and it's obtain a red arrow on your wild card. So I got that new achievement for game week 24, and the killer that I took out Palmer, which I was comfortable taking out Palmer. But if you remember, I was really on the fence with Saka of what to do, and it was kind of Saka versus Son or Richarlison, and I ended up going for Richarlison, which it didn't make any difference who I went for of the two. So that was a real pain point. That was a 13-point swing, which was really difficult to take. And obviously we had the De Bruyne bench news. So I had Hwang on. I had Hwang on my fuck's sake. I was doing all this. I was doing all this at 5 to 11 on Saturday morning, right? So I had Hwang on my bench, first bench, but there was obviously rumours that he may or kind of may not play, and I had De Bruyne. So I was like, oh, what do I do? And so
Were you out and about, or were you actually watching a stream or anything? Or?
what was? Oh, I definitely wasn't watching a stream. I think I was out and about, but I ended up for some reason playing. So I put Neto in my wildcard instead of Hwang, just so I could start Neto this week. I didn't think there was much in between them, in all honesty. Obviously, Neto, when he got an assist, it was chalked off. And then De Bruyne came off the bench and got an assist. So
Got an assist,
all in all, a real
yeah. It
real
was.
stinger.
Yeah, there was a big sort of drip-fed set of leaks. They were dripping. One player's going to start, one player's on the bench. For that sort of last 40 minutes, there was one player every 5 minutes getting revealed. And so if you weren't, paying attention during that last hour, there was a lot of information coming out. I mean, you could say, look, it was in the public domain, right? It was very well publicized. So it wasn't one of these ones that was a leak to an exclusive group of people. It was just, social media leaking out the team news. But there are many people who are busy on Saturday mornings. They're all over the world. They've got families, they've got things to be doing. And now, you're once again, there's an edge being gained by waiting for the deadline. So I don't like it, but there's not much I can do about it. You either got to try and get the information, or you just don't worry about it and you put a proxy in. So
Exactly.
tough.
And thank goodness I held on to Gabriel. I think if I hadn't have held on to Gabriel as well, then and gone for someone else, like a forward thinking transfer as well. Yeah, I mean a real sting. Again, lots of pelters in the chat already. We haven't even started a debate about whether it's spaffed or not. I'm 1974 says, do we have a full spaff, Fergie? James Pegram, Wildcard 24 was never the play. FPL Scoped says, never seen a chipped spaffed harder than this. FPL copycat, spaff indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, at least you've got a team full of Bournemouth, Luton, and Wolves
I mean,
players,
that's
mate.
exactly
So,
what I want. Is eight over half 50% of my FPL team with Bournemouth, Luton, and Wolves. So all is good. But yeah, it was a it was a bit of a tough week. Just on screen now, just for those who haven't seen, if you are a member on Fantasy Football Hub, we've now got a new dashboard. This is what you see when you log in to Fantasy Football Hub for the first time. It's really, really cool. You know, it's just a real kind of at a glance view of everything, kind of good or bad in your team health, your predicted point, your game week rating, your live rank, the predicted price changes for your team, your rank across the season, a kind of watch list as well. So if you choose players you want to go on your watch list, you can track their movements, track the price changes and things. So it's a really, really cool new feature for those who haven't seen it. Just so I'd share that for those who haven't logged into Fantasy Football Hub for a while. If you are a paying member, this is a brand new feature. And we'll be refining it and updating it over the coming weeks. I've got this spaffometer up, Rich, at the moment. So at the moment, for triple captain for two of us, I've got game week 25 in for both of us, TBC. I'm assuming you will be using your chip this week.
That's the plan. Yeah, I mean, there's been a little bit of news breaking this afternoon that Erling Haaland has lost his grandmother, I think it is, back in Norway, and that there will be, there's been peak FPL, I think Focal called it. There's going to be, someone's already mapped out the flight times from Manchester back to Norway and how quickly Haaland can get to and from the funeral on the 22nd of February or something. So crazy stuff out there. But yeah, there's a little bit of, possibly some compassionate leave involved for him. But yeah, I think my plan is that I will play it on Haaland. I don't want to overthink it. And I think 2 home games like that, and the form he's in and the form City are in, I don't think you overthink it here. So yeah, my plan is to play it this week. And you too. I mean, we've got to decide whether or not that wild card is indeed spaffed, Fergie. I mean, I think because of the swing to the legacy players that occurred, particularly, you might have been, a lot of people were maybe thinking, some bench Palmer or wildcarded Palmer out, and they nearly got away with it. I mean, he got 2 assists and 2 bonus points in the last 10 minutes, didn't he? So
Injury time, wasn't it, more or less?
yeah, well, the second goal was, yeah. So unlucky if you did punt against Palmer. He's incredibly consistent though. I've got no plans to ditch him.
Oh, he is.
Because I got 4.9 million and there's a lot of weeks to go. So yeah, I mean, my opinion would be that you have spaffed the wild card, but I think you've probably got an argument that it's got to stagger out, right? You've got to see how it goes in the coming weeks, because you're very strong for game week 28, aren't you? And lots of doublers this week, and strong for 28 could yet go in your favour, couldn't it?
It could do. I think as it stands, it's as it stands, the spaff. But as we all know, a wild card is not for 1 week. I'm trying to say it without kind of cracking a smile or even shedding a tear. But it was a tough week last week. I think the only way going forward that it won't be spaffed is if this week now in 25 my Luton players and whatever else just absolutely kill it.
Smash
and all the Watkins and Palmer and that don't. I'm going to need a massive swing though, like a 50-60 point swing for it to be worthwhile, which I can't see happening, but you never know. But a wildcard is not just for 1 week. FPL Scope says spafftastic. Please let me know in the chat whether you think my wildcard last week was smashed it, meh, or spaffed. We will update next week. I'm hoping it'll be upgraded to a meh. Such is the world we live in, that I would be excited with mediocrity. I would be pleased with the mediocre wildcard as it goes. But yeah, it hasn't got off to a grand start. Rich.
Okay, mate.
Mate, go on.
Good luck. Good luck. I mean, you're obviously going to be on a different strategy now to the mainstream as well. So you've got to put some thought into, hopefully holding on to that free hit, because you're not going to want any shocks in the FA Cup, are you? Which hand fixtures back to everybody with a template team. So it's that's got to go your way, the cup matches. And really that free hit's now very valuable to you for the running, isn't it? You want to try and not use it in 29. I mean, that would be how I would see it.
That would be a complete disaster.
Yeah, exactly.
Burma Bain says Fergie the Spaff master, and I'm 1974 says it will remain a spaff. I'm afraid, Fergie, full orchestra. What can we say? We will see. We will see this week. Stranger things have happened. We've got the fixtures up for the next few game weeks. fantasyfootballhub.co.uk. Just go to fixture analyzer if you want to go and have a look there. Bournemouth top of the shop. They've got the most fixtures over the next few game weeks, along with Man City and Brentford. But they've got the Bournemouth fixtures are pretty decent, I think, overall. Which is why the top. Luton, as we know, double both in 25 and 28. Right down the bottom, Spurs and Chelsea. They are down the bottom, and Liverpool are halfway up because they all blank in 26. But Rich, what's your take on the lay of the land for FPL for the coming few weeks now?
Yeah, I think I've looked at a few teams this week, and we're going to go into a period where it's fairly procedural. I think FPL for the next few weeks is a bit like one of those puzzles where you move one piece around down to the next level, and then the next piece, and then the next piece. Because until we get any cup news, the FA Cup matches are played between game weeks 26 and 27, which is 2 whole game weeks of FPL to go before we'll get any more fixture news. It's pretty obvious what people need to do. They need to keep an eye on how many players they've got blanking in game week 26. So that's the anyone you have from Luton, from Spurs, from Chelsea, and from Liverpool. Pretty teams with a lot of high-owned teams, and teams that we're buying players from last week and this week as well. And now they blank in 26. So you've got to add those players up together and see how many you can get out if everyone stays healthy in game week 26. Now, personally, I think at the moment I've got 5 because I bought a Luton player last week, which added to my issue. I've got 2 Liverpool. I've got Porro, I've got Palmer, so those are players on my mind. Which one I'm thinking about, which ones I'm going to lose out of those teams this week or next week. And then also less important because it's further away is, how many game week 29 guaranteed starters have we each got, at the moment based on the 3 fixtures we know are taking place there. So getting a player in now that plays in 29, it's a bit of a longer play, but it should pay you back. So maybe getting in a single game week player that has a fixture in game week 29 is a good play, especially if you have to take a hit to fix an injured player like Trent or whatever, and don't necessarily get a Liverpool player in to replace him because you can negate the blank by getting someone who plays in 26 and 29. So that sort of thinking is on my mind and going to continue to be on my mind. But when we get those FA Cup results just before the end of the month, that will really, shape the next phase. It will shape how aggressive we will be for that Luton Bournemouth double. I mean, you're in great shape for that week, but the majority of us have only got 1 or 2 players for that week, and you'll then be able to decide how hard you go at that double in 28, or do you keep your precious transfers in 27, 28, and 29 to build the team for 29. And I think we'll see a bit of a split on play there, depending on how those fixtures play out. So that's the summary. I think if you are in trouble for 29 after those game week 27 fixtures, for instance, if there are FA Cup shocks, i.e. a lot of teams you win their fixtures in an unexpected way. Let's say Leeds beat Chelsea, Manchester United lose to Nottingham Forest, that sort of thing. And all of a sudden United get a fixture in game week 29. Chelsea and Arsenal are restored to the schedule in game week 29. All of a sudden, all the teams that maybe template type teams are going to have no problem navigating that week and transfers to spare. So they'll be able to go at the double harder. However, if it goes as per Ben Crellin's percentages, and every predicted team makes it through, then I've done a bit of a plan through to 29. I think I can get to about 8 or 9 players without hits, which doesn't feel too bad, providing I play sensibly and that template FPL. So doesn't feel too bad. And that to me means I want to hold on to the free hit, really. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, same. I think as you said, it seems to be now for the next 2 to 3 to 4 weeks, everyone is kind of looking at their team and shaping their team up to be able to obviously optimize each game week, but to build up to 29, and therefore I think it's very limited in terms of how creative you can actually be now for the coming weeks, because everyone will be plotting, well, if I move X to Y in 25 this week, I get X amount of doublers, I can then move A to B in 26. So I think every team is reasonably kind of well ordered. At least go into 26, then we get the news after 26 go into 27, and then it's the next, as you say, the next phase. Then it's think we're kind of in small chunks now, aren't we? We've had like 24 and 25 and 26 you can prepare for. Then you'll have 27, 28 and 29. And then after that, then it's like a brand new phase of the season from
frenzy.
From sort of 30 onwards, there'll be wild cards played. We'll know so much more about the doubles in 34 and 37. Is there any more doubles to be added in as well? And the FPL template will probably look very, very different from 30 onwards, I think. So obviously, those like myself who've used the wild card, trying to maximize this period as well. So I'm probably not going to play as sensibly as template as everyone else, because there's no point to me doing that now. I kind of made my bed in terms of trying to maximize these next few gaming. So I will try and do that, and potentially, if even use a free hit in 29, because I'm definitely a thing. If United get knocked out, for example, and they have a good home game against Sheffield United in 29, just as an example, I see that as a really decent opportunity for a triple up on United for a free hit, for example. Whereas those who are going kind of through the motions with the template team may not decide to do that. So that's the advantage I'm kind of trying to seek now, is trying to get as many points as I can until that point, and then set up a pretty standard team afterwards. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, and kind of, as you say, week by week now. It's very intricate. We've obviously had some news this week now, haven't we? That Gvardiol is going to be out for 2 to 3 weeks, which is quite interesting, because it potentially makes Nathan Ake a lot more nailed than we thought. What are your thoughts on Ake? He's a really good asset when he's playing, isn't he?
Right at the top of my watch list, really. I think that news last night, because we went into last night's Champions League game, I think, with all City defenders theoretically available. They've got about 8 or 9 of them, and all of them are capable of playing at any level. So it's a risky pick. And all of a sudden, when your sort of nailed left-sided defender hasn't got any competition, or has lost his major competition, it makes him pretty irresistible going into the double game if you've got a City slot available in the defence, or if you've got a City slot available anyway. So I've got a choice, and one of the choices is Ake for me this week. But last season, I bought him in exactly at this juncture, ahead of a Champions League game, because I think I had exact money and had to buy him before he went up. And then he did a hamstring in the Champions League, and I never got a kick out of it. So I sold him, and then he came back, and then he hauled. He scored and got a 15-pointer, which I didn't have. So it's just I've not had a good experience of owning him. It's a little bit of a Reece James kind of pick. So, but he's right up there. So I think if you want a City defender, he's the one.
Would you think that's Ake and or a City defender is, I wouldn't say a better pick than a third City forward, because I think it's probably fair to say if people had the choice now, if they had a free hit, they would probably go for Haaland, De Bruyne, and Foden, I would guess. But do you think Ake is a very, very reasonable kind of third asset if you can't get to a third player? I think he probably is.
I think he is. I think it's always team specific, isn't it? But a lot of people are clearing out their deadwood at the moment. If you've got injured, flagged, or non-starting players in your team, now is the time to get them out for someone that will, start for you in 26, possibly double for you now, plays 29, all that sort of thing. It's definitely a good time for clearing out the closet. And so in that respect, he's good. But for me, it's not ideal, because I'd have to lose, say, Pedro Porro to get him in, who's a game week 29 player, has a fixture then, and therefore keeping Porro is a good option because Spurs fixtures are good. You know, he has tailed off a little bit with Maddison's
Yeah,
return and stuff, but they're
definitely.
still Spurs are still winning games. They're still very attacking. Porro's fine to hold, and I don't really want to sell him. I'm only selling him because it's a 3 for 1 from Nathan Ake, and I've got a spot there, that a City spot to use. The alternative is doing something crazy like selling Saka for De Bruyne. You know, and Saka on the form he's in, and with Arsenal on the form they're in, that doesn't seem that sensible to
No, I
me.
agree.
But he's the only route to get to De Bruyne for me in one move is to sell Saka for him. So I'm not sure I'll do that, despite the fact that De Bruyne looked great last night, golden assist in the Champions League, could smash it over the 2 weeks. Um, and if I was free hitting, I'd definitely have him. But I just think you've got to sort of I think you fix the weak area of your team, or you put the City guy into the area of your team where there's the right slot. And I don't feel like going out without Saka is a good idea.
No,
Not with
I
60%,
definitely
not with
agree.
60% ownership.
He's on fire. He's just
Yeah.
he went. It's funny because it was being kind of mooted that he was inconsistent and quite boring, but I've always viewed him the other way. Even when people say, "No, he's not worth the money. He's very boring," he was still getting like an assist. He was still getting an assist, wasn't he? He was still getting just the 5 or 6 points. Whereas, if you consider his price, didn't he start the season at 8 million this year? Or was it 8.5? Incredibly cheap for what he is, but he is capable, as we know, of absolutely exploding like he did last weekend as well. He's just a fantastic asset, and
Mm.
obviously disappointed to lose him, but it was part of the grander plan. But no, Saka is you just got to leave him in. He's one of those players who will just like. I didn't expect Arsenal to beat West Ham 6-0 away, right? Which is probably
No.
why I kind of I thought they'd win maybe 2-0 or something. If Saka got something, it wasn't the end of the world. But he is that kind of player who can explode in any game, isn't he, Saka? Because he's that good,
Hmm.
Arsenal that good. So the other team,
Yeah.
which have been of significant interest this week, and obviously they double again in 25, is Liverpool. And there's a couple of updates on a couple of players. Firstly, Mo Salah was spotted back in training yesterday. Liverpool tweeted themselves, "Look who's back!" And you had Salah walking out with the rest of the team. There was a bit of information shared that he wasn't in full contact training yesterday. He was doing quite a lot of the kind of drills and warm ups, but wasn't in full contact training. But there was also, I think Ben Dinnery tweeted earlier. Excuse me if I get that, if I get this wrong, but it was something about if everything's okay, he should be in the squad for the weekend, which would be interesting for Salah because obviously most of us don't have
Can't get
Salah
to
and
him.
don't have a route to Salah for various reasons. One is
Mm.
price, but two, some of us have got 3 Liverpool players as well. And the other one is Trent looks to be out for at least a couple of weeks. So there was a tweet sent out earlier from a couple of journalists saying that Trent is going to miss the Carabao Cup final,
Oh,
which
yeah.
is not this coming weekend, it's a weekend after. So he's going to be out for a couple of weeks ahead of a double game week, which is potentially good news maybe for someone like Connor Bradley. So even though Liverpool blank in 26, if he, as you mentioned earlier, Rich, if he fits the team, fits the profile of the person you're looking for, he could be really good. Even though now that Robertson is back, it means Gomez could potentially slot in at right back. But yeah. So on Liverpool, what are your thoughts on those? There's a few conundrums there, aren't
Yeah.
there?
I mean, I think it makes having the categoric news on Trent is useful, and he's very highly owned. I don't own him, but he's 8.6 million. It's very expensive,
Absolutely.
and therefore I think he becomes an easy sell. You sell him. You can sell him this week for a doubler. You can sell him for this week for someone who plays in 26 and 29. You can reduce the number of blankers you have and still get a good defensive asset in. Or you could get you could get to the Arsenal double up and still free up 3.5 million. You could go to Gabriel, or go to Saliba or whatever. There's things you can do and get a really good defender in and free up a lot of cash. Now you can free up a lot of cash, add it to what you have in the bank, and you might be able to get to Salah for a hit in terms of taking a punt on him. It's definitely worth considering if the press conference is positive on Salah, because the ownership is so down that owning an opportunity to own Salah, and when others don't, over the double game week is a really good one. But personally, I won't be going there. Again, I can't get to him without several hits, and it just adds another blanker into the team before game week 26 for me. So I'm just gonna go with Jota and Darwin as my two Liverpool assets. I won't go for Van Dijk or Bradley or a Trent replacement for the same reason. I'm just going to work the number of doublers, the number of blankers down, sorry. And I think two Liverpool assets is fine this week. I don't think you have to maximise. If you're free hitting, you'd do it, but I don't think it's essential.
Robertson is 3.2% owned. A comment from Pete in the chat: a 3% on Robbo seems too good to be true as a TAA replacement for a double game week. He's 2.2 million cheaper as well, 6.4 million. I think he could be a good option, but as you say, it's team dependent because he does blank in 26. We've had some questions around, who is the best Trent replacement, not just obviously for anyone's specific team, but looking forward. Wayne in the chat, he's asking, is it Van Dijk, is it Villa defender, or anyone else? Maybe Ake. Who was your thought would be, Rich, on the best
I mean,
replacements?
I'd say Ake. If you have a City spot free, if you've got 3 City, obviously that's not going to happen. So I'd say Ake. I'd say a second Arsenal defender, or I've seen one or two teams without a single Arsenal defender. So if you haven't got Gabriel or Saliba, I'd definitely get one of them in and use this injury as an opportunity to do that. They've got Burnley away, then Palace at home. Is it? I mean, they've got great fixtures, Arsenal, and
Sheffield United
they're
as well
looking
in
like going from
27 or whatever.
going from strength to strength. So yeah, get at least one Arsenal defender. Possibly look at the double up. And Van Dijk for the double. I would pay the extra and get Van Dijk over Bradley personally, if I was getting a Liverpool defender. I think he's liable, the one who is most likely to play both games, and has good strong attacking threat. But yeah, I get the Robertson point. I just think Tsimikas is going to get a game.
Oh, really? You do you?
And having held him for about 3 months and then sold him last week, I think yeah, Simigas is probably likely to get the Luton game because it's just the perfect opportunity to rest Robertson before
before the final, isn't it? Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, exactly.
You just wanted to touch on keepers as well. You mentioned kind of Alisson and then Alisson and Edison. What are your thoughts on the keepers over the coming weeks?
Yeah, I like those two keepers. I looked at the Alisson transfer last week, but then the news came out that he was one of the players with the flu, wasn't it? Late on. I think it might have come out just after the deadline, actually, when because I think even his lordship Ben Crellin, who can't put a foot wrong at the moment, he brought in Alisson and ended up having to play Areola in the 6-0. So everything doesn't always go right for Ben. So, but it was a good pick, and you can see the logic behind it because it just gives you that extra spot for the blanker in game week 26. So again, if you have the money and your team, has that slot. So a lot of people are carrying Matt Turner, who's largely redundant. So I could do Turner to Edison or Alisson, could afford that move, and then I've sort of mapped it all out using a planner, and most of the transfers we'll be making between now, if you're following the sort of template, are downward transfers. Selling a more expensive player for a cheaper one for Bournemouth, for Luton games. For the game week in 29, you're buying players from less popular teams, therefore they're generally cheaper. And so you can afford that. The point is you can afford to, say, run with two expensive goalkeepers all the way through to the wild card. So that would mean I was running with, say, Alisson and Martinez. I'd have like 11 million on the goalkeepers, and one of them would be on the bench every week, which is not optimal, is it? But for the next 5 weeks,
it's all right.
It's actually affordable because we're going with a one premium approach. You're not getting Salah back in.
Yeah.
You might get Son, but he'd be the biggest stretch you need to make. And therefore, you just need to keep 1.5 million back to do, say, Foden to Son or something in game week 27. So I definitely think the keepers, one of the premium keepers, again, is an option for this week. But people who have owned Edison in the past have been extremely disappointed because he doesn't really make any saves, and City tend to concede. So I'd probably go for Alisson if I could afford it.
Just a couple of other players we were asked about. Just touch back on Salah. So obviously Liverpool double this week. It's very unlikely, I think, that he gets significant minutes. The double game week may get a couple of better. He's been out for a while, right? I think he's been out for like 4 or 5 weeks, so he's not going to just suddenly start and play 90, is he? Kind of Haaland-esque, where Haaland got a bit of a rest first, and they've got the final
gentle introduction,
and they're going to want him back for that final. I would guess. More than anything. So I don't think we should be scared of Salah this week. Looking after that, they obviously blank in 26. They've got Forest away in 27, which, is a good fixture. They've then got City at home in 28. Now, Salah has got a good record against City, but it is a tough fixture in 28, and other teams do double as well. And then I think they're very likely to blank, aren't they, in 29. Is Salah, you're not putting anything in place to potentially get Salah back before your wild card, do you?
I don't know. I mean, it's kind of like the one reason I'm slightly thinking about getting KDB in, right, for Saka, is that it makes the switch up to Salah in game week 27 for that Nottingham Forest fixture. It makes it possible. It makes it reachable because you can come down off, say, Darwin, to Adebayo.
Yeah.
And generate the money quite easily to then do De Bruyne up to Salah.
Yeah.
And you can get him in over those weeks. I mean, it's not the optimal path, is it? No model or recommended route will recommend bringing in Salah in at this stage. But if you want to play the upside and just captain Salah against the herd that week, I think he's more gettable if you have KDB in your team, who you're liable to lose towards game week 29 anyway, and you can lose KDB for Salah in game week 27. But then they play each other, don't they? They play each other, and you don't really want a team full of Liverpool and City players, for that clash, ideally. So it's risky, but it's definitely doable. And I held back money thinking it would be really cheeky to get Salah in when nobody owns him. So part of me likes the idea, but I doubt I'll do it.
And the other player on everyone's lips at the moment, who would have thought it? But Reguilon, who's playing, I think he's playing for his third team this season now. He was still at Spurs, went out on loan, United, played a couple of games there. He's come back. He's now at Brentford, and obviously Brentford. Double this week, but they also play in 26 and 29. He looks at the moment, I had a quick look earlier, to be reasonably safe. I think is it Hickey who's the normal sort of left back?
Rico Henry.
Might be Henry.
I thought it was Rico Henry's position.
Yes, it is. Sorry, he's been out ages, haven't he? But what's your thoughts on Reguilon? He's very cheap, 4.4 million. I can't really get that excited about him, to be honest. Just
I can see him as being like a bench player on a free hit if you're doing it this week or something like that, or if you're bench boosting. There's been talk of some people have been suggesting this week might be a good week to bench boost if they're set up for that. So fine for that, but I just think if you look at the fixtures for Brentford, Liverpool and City, it doesn't get any worse than that, does it? And you're buying a defender. This is not the week to buy a Brentford defender, I don't think.
No, I can't.
Arguably, if he was in my team, I probably wouldn't play. I wouldn't start him with those 2 games. I just would think it was, I think he's fine if you've got him in on a wild card to cover 29 and to cover 1 or 2 reasonable fixtures before them. But I don't think I'll be going there, mate. I think there are better picks.
Can't get excited with the covering. I just can't get excited with just like a player having a fixture. It just screams to me like if it's not someone you actually want, it screams like a 1 to 2 pointer. I just can't get excited about it.
It's Emmanuel Dennis all over again, isn't it?
Can't get excited. Looking at predicted points, fantasyfootballhub.co.uk. If you want to look for yourself, you can view anyone you want. The current game week kind of number of game weeks. You can filter by team, filter by position, no forwards, only midfielders only. Absolutely fantastic tool. Take a look yourself. 7-day free trial, fantasyfootballhub.co.uk. Haaland top by an absolute mile from game week 25 to 28. Obviously, he plays 5 times in this period, Haaland, doesn't he? So he's top by a mile. 41.5 points. Second, De Bruyne. Rich, you won't be pleased to know if you're not going to plan on owning him, but he's predicted to score 29.2. Ivan Toney, third, 27.7. We haven't touched on Toney. Potentially it's because the forward slots are pretty stacked at the moment, and also we've kind of got our plan for the coming weeks. But Toney is still a good option, right?
I think he is, yeah. And I think what's happened with the Bournemouth double going into game week 28 is kind of forced everybody to either keep Solanke, get him in on a wild card, or reserve a slot for him later on. So not so many are now moving for Toney, but he scored 3 times since he's come back, 2 or 3 times anyway, at least.
2 games, you know, so
yeah. So he's doing well. He's hit the ground running, and he can score against anybody, right? Even though the fixtures are tough. So I'm not surprised to see Toney near the top of the list. And I think if you want to go, against carrying a Watkins through or get Solanke late on, then Toney may be worth a punt this week. I think he's a good pick. I just don't have the slot for him myself.
It's tough because he plays Chelsea in 27, which is not going to be very easy, and he got Arsenal away in 28. When you've got players like Solanke, Adebayo, and all these who have got doubles and all this and really good fixtures aside from that, and some are still stuck on Alvarez. Some have got Darwin, and obviously Haaland takes about a spot as well. It's just tough to fit him in, but I think in 26 he may be more interesting as an option, just because I think those on Darwin are going to look to kind of make a decision on where they're going to go with that forward spot. Are they going to go on to Solanke? Maybe for those who've come off Watkins, like myself, as I'm currently likely eyeing up Darwin back to Watkins maybe in 26. Could just go to Toney. But I think this week, not a week, same as regular on, really.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of teams still with Archer in them. I'm quite surprised at how many are still on that sort of 3-5-2 setup, and they haven't moved the cheap forward on. So for teams with Trent and Archer, a nice trade this week with Trent being confirmed out is go Trent down to a cheap doubling defender and use the money to do Archer up to Toney. The money sort of covers itself nicely. So that's probably worth a -4 worth considering. They'll just pay back in appearance points because Archer's not nailed anymore.
I feel really sorry for people who've held on to Trent. It just hasn't worked out, is it? And now the way the fixtures are falling, people were holding on to him for this double game week, and he just happens to be out for this, and the fixtures don't fall in their favour now until game week 30 onwards, does it? I do feel sorry for Trent holders, because they kind of held their nerve, kept him there just in the background, held him through his previous injury as well, potentially, just so they'd still have him, because he's so hard to get back, and 8.6 million. Is that the most expensive defender ever? I think it probably is, isn't it?
I think it is now.
So hard to get back, because they held on to him, held the cash, but it just didn't quite. It didn't work out. Saka is fourth in the list, 25.6. Solanke 25.4. Foden 24. Wilson is quite high as well for Newcastle. Obviously Newcastle don't double, but their fixtures are pretty good. Newcastle scored lots of goals. Isak, we think, is still out for a little while, so Wilson should kind of dominate that forward spot in minutes there. Alvarez is still there. He was rested last night, interestingly. I don't think he was dropped. I think he was rested, so he's going to be back. He's no doubt going to come back and hurt a few people in here at some point. He's going to get some goals. He's still an option, still very cheap. 6.7 million for someone playing that City attack is crazy, right? Darwin.
Yeah, I think I sold him last week and just did a swap for Haaland, and he's it's half the price, isn't he? Less than half the price of Haaland now.
Yeah. Darwin, holders will be hoping for something in this double game week. Watkins is still there, and Adebayo, and then some others. Then, we'll skip those. But don't think there's anyone kind of massively missing off that list. There's an awful lot of forwards on that. I don't think we've seen a season like this for a while, have we? Where we've been so stacked with forward options. And in that list of, was it 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11? In those top 11 places, there are 8 forwards dominated the predicted points, which is, we haven't seen a season like this for ages, have we?
A bit different to how we've been so midfield focused, and we've always thought they're the highest scoring position. Yeah, the forwards are having a good season, aren't they? It's been some consistent captaincy there, because you often think, oh, captain the midfielder, but actually so yeah, absolutely. Good stuff, Fergie. Good stuff.
Best captain for this game week. This should be quite a quick conversation, I would guess. Obviously, those in the chat are asking about the rumours around Haaland's grandmother's funeral and things. I mean, what can you do? As you said earlier, Rich, just 3 words there. Don't overthink it. Put your captaincy on Haaland, unless you're just chasing and you just fancy going, completely against the grain and just trying to be different for difference sake. There are other options, right? But we'll see the Jon Snow gif coming out, won't we, with the cavalry charging towards him quite a few times over the weekend. But it is going to be a little bit like that. We've had a poll in the hub today, just a small chat group, and overwhelmingly people are still triple captaining Haaland. Don't assume it'll be any different just because of this family funeral. I think I triple captained Haaland last year. We had a lot of variance, didn't we, on the triple captain last year? I think you went Rashford, and Rashford scored 60 points, didn't he, for owners with the triple? I think I went Haaland, and then that was that week he had double game week. And remember, it was when he got taken off at half time, but not before he'd given handed a penalty to Mahrez to take during the game. Do you remember that? And that was when I had him triple captain. So I'm sure there'll be some drama. It won't all go according to plan. It's amazing how often it happens in these double game weeks, isn't it? There's always something you just think, exactly. You couldn't even write it. When he handed Mahrez.
Gave him a penalty while he was on the pitch, and then he hobbled off at half time and was subbed. And then he had to get the one return he got in the harder game away at Arsenal the following week, where he wasn't really well fancied. So it's not going to go necessarily according to the script. I mean, if that Chelsea game, if people remember, not back, was 4-4 when they played each other a few weeks back. Now, I think City have gone on leaps and bounds since then. They're a much better team. Chelsea are still up and down with their performances. I don't think they were very good for 80% of the game against Crystal Palace, but they're still capable of scoring against City. They're still capable of having giving them a ding-dong battle. So I don't think it'll be two thrashings. However, just don't overthink it, I think. Go for
79% of the voters on fantasyfootballhub.co.uk. Agree with you, Rich. Jota second with just 7% of the vote. De Bruyne third. So interesting there. A couple of the Salah as well. Nunes and Foden. But yeah, don't overthink it. Put it on. Is there any reason, Rich, at all not to put the triple captain on? We've had a question off FPL SWAT. I think around EO effective ownership. What do you think his effective ownership is going to be?
I think I was chatting about with some other members earlier in the week. I think we were talking about EO being around 230%, maybe. With the triple captaincy play, it might be even higher than that. It could be up towards 260. I'm not an expert on EO, but it feels like, just given his ownership and given the fact that Salah's not fit enough to sort of give him a healthy competition this week. There could be another double for City, but you don't know if the players are injured. Having just captained Solanke a couple of weeks ago, I would strongly suggest people don't go for Solanke in game week 28, because he didn't even have a shot when I captained him. So that's put me right off and just sealed the Haaland thing for me. But yeah, just don't overthink it. It's only one extra score. It's the weakest chip. I wish they'd replace it, to be honest, but you've got to use it. So use it in a double game week.
Use it this week. Fergie is a punt from game week 25 to 28. Rich, you haven't looked, have you, this week yet? This one, which is good. So this player, let's see if you can guess. He's got a double game week. He's a very, very exciting player. And 2 injuries in roughly his position means he should get significant minutes. He's only 2.3% owned. It sounds like I'm talking about Robertson, actually, but I'm not talking about Robertson. But I think he's very exciting. He's not someone who will be mainstream. He's definitely not someone we've even mentioned on this pod. But any thoughts in the chat on who I'm talking about? But he could score when he plays. He gets points, and he's a very good player. He's just inconsistent with his minutes. Be interesting to see if you can guess, Rich, or anyone in
got
the
a double
chat.
game week.
He has. And any ideas at all?
He's not Bradley.
Nope.
Connor Bradley.
He's a midfielder.
Okay.
And he is a Man City midfielder.
Ah.
And Chef AB.
Okay. I think I've got an idea. I think I've got an idea. Is it Doku?
It's Jeremy Doku, who could be incredibly exciting. Bernardo Silva, I think, picked up an injury last night. And
Grealish has got an injury as well.
Grealish got an injury as well. So Doku, well done to those in the chat who've got FPL. Freddie and Chef have both got it. Doku could have a very good week this week. Like I say, because of the other options, Foden, De Bruyne, and Haaland especially. Doku isn't going to be looked at all. But if he plays, out of the 180 minutes, if he plays 140, 160 of those minutes, he could get really, really good points. And every time I've watched him, he is frightening. His feet, his pace, when he cuts in on that right foot on that left-hand side and kind of bends toward the far post, it's a very good option. So I'm bringing him in one fantasy format.
What's his price, buddy?
Do you know what? I haven't actually got that in front of me. Let me have a quick.
Let's ask the chat. We don't know
everything except the price. I'll have a quick look now. Have a guess of his price, Rich.
Oh, 6.7.
6.5. Cheapest chips as well.
Not bad.
6.5.
Yeah,
very, very cheap.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah. So I like him, and I think over these next couple of games he could be a really good player. Other ones we had guesses for Oscar Bob, even though he's a really good player. Don't expect him to get many minutes. FPL Sport says Paul Dickov. I don't know where that's come from, but yeah,
a generation ago.
Absolutely. Rich, we've got your team on screen. Do you want to talk us through your plans for Double Game Week 25?
Okay, yes. So I have pretty much narrowed it down to one of 2 players that I'm bringing in for this week. I will either sell Pedro Porro for Nathan Ake, or I will sell Kayo Saka for Kevin De Bruyne.
Okay.
That will give me 3 City players, 2 Liverpool assets, and Alfie Doughty, who I bought in last week. So 6 double game week players. I will play Martinez in goal. I will play Gabriel, and I'll play my 2 doublers in the back. If I get Ake, otherwise I'll just play Pedro Porro and keep him through 29. I will have a very template midfield of Jota, Saka, Foden, and Anthony Gordon, who miraculously was not injured. Thanks, Eddie. After last week's press conference, so many people sold Gordon thinking he was crocked.
He may be wild card.
Not only did he started and played 90. That was unbelievable, wasn't it? So he's back for me. I mean, I've been quite fortunate because Gordon turned out not to be too badly injured. Harry Maguire has now recovered, and due to another couple of Man United defensive injuries, he's nailed for United. And Estupinan looked like he'd been dropped but wasn't, and came back and started against Tottenham. So actually, I've actually got far fewer flagged or buyers to put out than I thought I have for 26. So being in good shape for 26, I think is all right. So I'm tempted, I think, to do the Ake move, which is a 3-for-1. You talk about those in Sky all the time, don't you? So a 3-for-1 for Porro, and that would allow me to get through game week 26 without a hit and play 11. I just would sell Jota probably in 26 and then can put a full side out. And I think there'll be loads of people taking -4s, -8s in 26 just to get a team out. So that's like 3 points to me. I just think hoover that up, especially at my lowly rank. I can fly past a few people. So that's what I'm aiming to do. I think Ake's the sensible move. De Bruyne's the head's gone.
It's gone. Estepina on the bench. We have had a couple of comments in the chat around Estepina, and he's just inconsistent with the start. And I think he played a couple of 90s. Then he went off half time. Then he missed the next game completely, and then he played 90 again. So he does have very good fixtures. He's got Sheffield United away this week, which is obviously a really good fixture. Everton home the following week, but his predicted points are so low because we just don't know what his kind of minutes are and whether he's going to play or not. Because you've got kind of Lamptey who's been playing there, and you've got a lot of the other defenders back, Brighton, and and De Zerbi being De Zerbi as well, just changes 11 massively every week, don't he? So he
does. He's not. He doesn't pick a steady team, and he also players a bit like Mourinho. Some of the players will cop for the blame if they have a bad performance. And I think Estupiñán has not put in the best performances all of the time. He's very exciting, but he's not someone that we can rely on week in, week out. So actually, he's probably not the fantasy pick we hoped he might be. So because of I think there's a guy called is it Hinchelwood who's now long-term injured, and I think that helps Estupiñán's medium-term prospects of reliable starts. So certainly, he could be started against Sheffield United, and that almost like pushes me back towards the De Bruyne move, because all of my defenders are playable this week. Maguire's got Luton, Estupiñán's got Sheffield United away, and they're the two on my bench. So it's almost like I don't need to make a defensive transfer this week. It's just purely that there's this third City spot that I feel I need to move. So I could hokey cokey De Bruyne and Saka, and just get him back, but that just feels like a waste of money, doesn't it? It's stupid.
So your recommended transfer this year, Rich? This week, Watkins to Tony. Interestingly enough,
so, right? Okay, interesting.
Recommendation.
Yeah, interesting.
This week. Take a look at my team. This week, if I can't get excited about this week, I can't get excited about anything. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 doublers. Kaminsky, Virgil, Doughty. Even though two Luton ones play against Liverpool and Man United, but you never know. You never know. Could get some kind of penalty save and an attacking return off Doughty maybe. I've got Virgil, I've got De Bruyne, Jota, Foden. I've got Richarlison, obviously only plays once, but home to Wolves is pretty decent. Haaland, Darwin, and Adebayo up front. On my bench, I ended up with Neto. Actually, I've got both Netos on my bench, which is something probably you've never seen before. But I've got Neto and Nori ready for game week 26. And
Senesi, he came good for you, didn't he? He was,
I think great.
He was one on a draft I shared with you, and he looks really good actually. So you got him to come.
Got him to come. I had his goal on my bench this week as well, just to rub more salt in the wound. But I think I'm gonna save a transfer this week. I'm quite nervous about not having Saka. Honestly, he's going to be the player who kind of I think he's going to make or break me this week, because I could get some really good extra appearance and double points off certain players, like I think I've got 4 more doublers than yourself, for example. But if Saka kicks off, it's all a waste of time, and they're away to Burnley, and Burnley have just been dreadful recently. So Saka is the one for me.
You've just got to survive 1 week without him, because you could do Jota to Saka next week, couldn't you? So that's quite
that's what I'm going to do.
Transfer.
I think in 26, that's what I'm going to do. So that's my plan. But yeah, if I can't get excited for this week, I've got predicted points of 119 points this week.
Oh dear, that sounds a lot of points,
and that's without a triple captain as well. Yours is.
And what was the difference? Could you just go back? What was my predicted points before I made a transfer?
101.7.
Right, so that's a big difference, isn't it? 18 points difference.
Well, yeah, I wild cards into this, so that's the thing. But I just hope that one of my doublers, I don't know, like Adebayo potential, or even Virgil, if Virgil pops up with a 15-pointer in one of them, because he's not that highly owned, because for those who haven't wildcarded, just got to hope that they pop in. I've got a game week rating this week on Fantasy Football Hub, 96%. Yours is 82, but obviously you've got a transfer to kind of make as well. So This is the week, really, where I've just got to be excited. And Manon says, this week will vindicate Fergie's wildcard. We will see, indeed.
Well, good luck, mate. Good luck. You were forced into it largely by injuries and bad luck. So hope it works out for you.
My recommended transfer this week, ironically, Richarlison to Saka, which hurts because that was the one I had in mind, and even that.
You can't sell Richarlison. We've got Wolves.
No, I'm not, mate. I'm not this week. I'm happy just holding this. I'm just gonna play the 11, have 2 transfers for 26. It also gives me the opportunity. Obviously I'll have 2 transfers in 26, which would be good. I can even play like a mini wild card and take a -4 and really, again, try and get ahead of the curve a touch, maybe in 26. We will see, but yeah, I think I forget as well. I am ahead of the curve on 26. I feel, because I've got like double Wolves as well as example, which no one's even looking at Wolves because they're just scrabbling to get any kind of 11 out. I'm going to have a pretty decent 11 in 26. So, like I said, I think the wild card. I'm a bit more optimistic now looking at my team going forward than I was. I've still got a really good team for this week. I'm ahead of the curve on 26. 27s is okay, it's a bit an average week, but I've got lost doubles in 28 already, so I'm pretty well set for these few weeks. Whereas everyone else is kind of just trying to, keep up with having enough players out almost. So you never know. I could have a good few weeks, even though I am reliant on Luton, Bournemouth, and Wolves to save my season, but we will see.
Doesn't sound great, but we're all going to be doing the same thing. We're all going to start buying Bournemouth and Luton players, after the game week 12, before and after game week 26. It's like it's nuts, man. It is crazy.
Senesi's going to save my season.
Thank you. There's a couple of people in the chat, like Manon, say, don't sell Saka, Rich. That's the sort of comment I need. It's just people just to ground me and say, look, don't be ridiculous, because you'll just want him back and he'll just smash it, and then the whole game just flies past you.
Definitely agree.
That is crazy.
Yeah. Okay, that is it from us for this week. Thank you so much to everyone who joined in the chat. Those who watch it back and those listening on the podcast, for your support is very, very much appreciated. Rich, thank you so much for joining me. Apologies, everyone. This is on a Wednesday evening. It is my daughter's 18th birthday this week, so we are going out tomorrow evening to celebrate that, which is why we're doing this a day early. From next week on, we'll be back to our usual Thursday 5:30 slot, roughly. But thanks, Rich, for accommodating. Thanks to everyone in the chat for accommodating, listening, and joining us as well. We hope you enjoyed. Where can people get hold of you, Rich?
At Rich Clarke FPL on Twitter.
And my handle is at FFH_Fergie. This podcast video will be on the Fantasy Football Hub YouTube channel, with the podcast versions available on all major podcast platforms. If you like what you watched, please press the like button. Remember to subscribe to the channel in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. If you enjoyed your listen, please rate the podcast and leave a comment. Don't forget, you can get 7-day free trial, fantasyfootballhub.co.uk. You can use all the features, all the My Team features, recommended transfers, Opta stats, everything you need for a great season in FPL. We'll be back next week looking ahead to blank game week 26. In the meantime, we hope you have a great double game week 25, and may all your arrows be green. Good night all.